Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Findaway Productions with your co-host, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain here with Coach Kenny Simpson, Northeast Arkansas legend.
I don't know about that now. I do feel like we're Under Armour sponsored today, by the way, with what we look like on camera. Not intentional, but I do like Under Armour.
I do like their clothes. Not their shoes so much. I didn't even realize I have on all three Under Armour.
All the way. And I got one too. So
Christmas Eve is when this is coming out. So, we're into the holiday season, moving towards a lot of people changing jobs right now. The job boards went from 1 or 2 jobs open to like 15 jobs open in Oklahoma overnight, it seemed like. I've been following the Missouri one a little bit. Arkansas is opening up. So a lot of people on the move this holiday season, Coach.
Yeah, it can be a tough time for some coaches. It's always fun when you're getting a new job or you're working, but, the other end of that is not real fun for some coaches, when they're not going there. But the Christmas spirit, we won't focus on that part. I'm a big fan of Christmas. That's my favorite holiday by far. So excited that we're going to be doing a giveaway at some point in this podcast. So guys that are on here, make sure you're paying attention. And it's a pretty easy question for a chance to win something for free. But I've watched probably about 15 Christmas movies so far. And the other good part about this is you're in the middle of bowl season. So it seems like there's a game every single day. Unfortunately, that's going to end at some point. And then we're going to be in like the worst sports period ever, which is like February back to August when there's nothing to watch.
Yeah, we get pretty spoiled here. There was that section during the season that happened too, right? Where it was like 15 straight days of football games or something. So thank you to the MAC or whoever else plays on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, man, it's moving through the holidays and getting, you talked about the giveaway. And so we'll kind of line out what that looks like real quick. Essentially today, because this is coming out on the 24th, you should have seen about 6:00 this morning, the podcast over at Coaching 101 Pod on Twitter /X is going to post a tweet. And in that tweet, you're going to have to, or a post, I guess. Whatever. Thanks, Elon, for making this confusing. Okay. You can make sure you're following the show on X/Twitter. You need to like that post, and then you need to repost it with the answer to the question that we're going to ask later in the podcast, as long as we don't forget. And if we do, I'll edit it in, so we'll still ask it no matter what. And so that's how you will be eligible to win. Coach is going to be kind enough to donate one of his head coaching workbook manuals. And so that will be the giveaway. If you already have that one, he said he was nice enough to let you kind of pick from the collection, see which one you want. He'll give you some options there. So we're going to take care of everybody. As long as you're the winner that day, you will have kind of your option what book you need. Yeah. So so be listening as we kind of get through the podcast here. We'll be asking that question somewhere between our comments down below. So with that, Coach, we will go ahead and get started, man. If you would like to share some ways to make coaching simple for our players and our staff.
Coaching 101 podcast is sponsored by Findaway Productions. Findaway Productions also sponsors fbcoachsimpson.com for all your coaching needs, with over 30 coaching materials, books, as well as 50 PowerPoints and videos and smaller materials, and the free magazine headsets. Findaway Productions also sponsors offensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things offense, and defensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things defense.
This episode is brought to you by Athletic Speed and Movement. At athleticspeedmovement.com, we've taken Del Basquet's 45 years of speed and movement training and put it all in one place just for you. You can get the same training that NFL players have been getting for years, collegiate players have been getting for years, and now high schools across the nation are paying thousands of dollars to bring Dell in to install his system, but we've got it online for you. It's time to help your team become faster, not just in the 40, not just their sprint speed, but between the tackles and their cuts while they're chasing down the quarterback. It's time for you to help them become faster everywhere. Jump over to athleticspeedmovement.com. There's an orange button there. Just click it. It says, get the keys to playing faster. You'll get the 3 core movement video from Dell. He's explaining the science behind it, all for just the price of your email. Check it out, athleticspeedmovement.com. Awesome, Coach. I appreciate that. So, we're talking about here in kind of in the off season, we want to talk about developing our players, and we started last week. The quarterback episode came out. So kind of how to identify what quarterback you want to use and who actually should play the role, what skills it is you want to develop, and then how to go about that. So, today we're going to jump to the defensive side of the ball because I don't want anybody to get bored. You defensive coordinators are on here and like all you do is talk about offense. Well, you're not wrong sometimes. So we want to make sure we throw in some defensive players. So today we're going to talk about safeties. I know in a lot of people's worlds today, especially the bigger the ball you get, it just seems like you have a field and a boundary safety. Some people still play like a strong safety and a weak safety. So there's options out there. Different people are calling defensive different ways. So we're just going to cover both of them in one day. So that way we don't have to worry about, a true free safety. I think one of our outside linebackers ran back and played some free safety this year in our scheme. So, there's guys all over the field that are going to be playing those positions. But question number one, Coach, is just what skills are you looking to develop in your safeties?
Yeah, and like you mentioned, safeties are different for every defense. There's some 3 safety guys that are still out there. I know Cody, we've had him on here before. He's a 3 safety guy. So, but what's happening though is you're starting to see these hybrid type guys, and a lot of them play safety, and they're able to roll in the box as an outside backer. And so, to me, the last episode we started with quarterbacks because that's kind of where we start with our offense. When we're looking at defense, this is kind of where we start with our defense. We start at the safety position because that guy has to have probably the most unique and wide-ranging skill set of anyone else that plays defense. And so that's kind of what we start looking for, because to play safety, they've got to be able to do a lot of things. They've got to be able to cover. They don't have to be, not maybe quite as good as a corner in coverage, but they've still got to be comfortable in coverage. A lot of times offense will isolate them on a slot receiver, and they've got to run with that guy. Or they've got to be able to go, maybe you're in a zone type defense, they've got to be able to get over the top of a corner route or a go route, or coming down and handle a dig route. And so they've got to have really good coverage skills, which a lot of times means they've got to be a great athlete, because that's hard. That's the hardest job in football, I think, other than playing quarterback, is coverage. I think you don't know where it's going to be. You got to be able to anticipate, understand film. And then on top of all of that, we ask our safeties to come fit in the box a lot. Now that teams are running tight ends and H-backs, and you're getting these 6-7 man kind of surfaces from the offense, those linebackers have got to be able to make tackles for a gain of 2. So they can't make a tackle for a gain of 8. It's not like a safety where you just hope you hang on. Depending on the offense you see, this guy might be down at 7 yards coming forward at the snap. So there's a unique skill set there. So we're looking to identify which kids have all of that. They can cover well. They can come down, and they're willing tacklers and good tacklers. And a lot of times their tackles are the toughest tackles because they're in space. They're making a tackle in an alley on a great athlete, maybe on a bubble screen or a sweep or whatever. So they've got to be great at coverage, and they got to be great at tackling. And then the third skill that we're looking for is they've got to be intelligent, because a lot of times the safety is the one who can see the box and the receivers. So they've got to be able to not only line themselves up correctly, but also communicate across to the corners, the outside backers, everybody else, what we're seeing. So a lot of times for us, that guy, at least one of those 2 guys, is kind of the quarterback of our defense. He's the guy that's got to get everyone else lined up correctly. He's got to identify, okay, they shifted in motion, and now we got to check to this. So there's some intelligent skills that have got to come on with that too. That's why I think these are the hardest positions to find. If you listen to the episode last week, we talked about quarterbacks. We do the same thing at safety. We try to identify as many kids as could play safety as possible at a young age. And then we basically work from there to move them to other positions. So here's a couple examples. If there's a guy that we think might be able to play safety, but he's not as physical as we'd like him to be, he ends up usually moving to corner. If there's a guy we want to play safety, but he's not as good in space as we wish he was going to be, a lot of times he transitions down to inside linebacker. And if he's a guy who we like at safety, but he really struggles with alignment and coverage issues. A lot of times he moves to outside linebackers. We kind of start with, do you have all three skills? Can you cover, tackle, and get us kind of coached up? If you can't do all three of those, we have other positions we can move you to,
Yeah.
but you've got to do all three of those to play safety. So that's why we start there with our defense at a young age, and then we kind of work forward from there.
Yeah, the leadership piece is where I'm really looking when I think of safeties because of that. You talked about even on last week, the quarterback, it needs to be the alpha dude, right? And I think defense is kind of the same way. The middle linebacker used to be that guy. And I don't know if it was the development of like quarters coverage or pattern matching. Maybe somewhere in there we turn the switch to like who the leader of the defense really needs to be. Um, and I'm pretty sure that Brian Urlacher, if he's still on the field, he's still the leader of the defense. But that safety, like you said, they do have a very large role of maybe they're not calling out the coverage. A lot of guys still want to talk to their middle linebacker, and he's the one telling everybody what defense we're going to run this play. But man, when they look to who's got to be in the right place all the time and do everything right all the time, it's still that safety. And you already mentioned like we use them in so many different ways. 9-man pressures or 9-man fits or whatever you want to call it, 9-man spacing, I guess, where we are just putting these cats down at basically they're a linebacker, right? Sometimes we're even walking them in the box, like they are an inside linebacker, and then out to like kind of more what I like, and that's that 7-man spacing, just letting them sit back and play some football and kind of spill and play things late. But either way, I used to think linebacker was the hardest position in football because you've got to go forward and backward at the same time on every play. But the safeties are right there too now with a lot more cerebral things going on.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to diagnose what route concept I'm about to catch out of this formation from my film study. But also, I've got to read some key that's going to tell me it's run pass. And we know how offensive coordinators like to hide those now, right? So, now we're pulling counter to the right, GT counter, and we're throwing the ball the whole time anyway. So we really can kind of mess with those safeties. So they have a big job to do. So I think that ability to be a leader, accept responsibility, accept when they screw up, help other people get over, little things. Life goes on, next play mentality type of stuff. So that's kind of what I want to see in a safety, along with all the things you said. Absolutely. Right. What's the best method to develop your safeties?
Well, one, they've got to be good in space. So any drill you can do where you're getting them comfortable kind of in a spatial area is going to be good. And we're going to hit drills, I know, in the next section, but just think of guys have got to be very comfortable because they're running alleys, and that alley there's not a lot of room for error on that. You're coming from 7, 8, 9 yards trying to tackle the best athlete they have in space. So they've got to be aware of how the field works. Are they an inside out safety fit? That's how we fit our guys. Are they a guy who's got to come maybe in a roll coverage and he's now become the force player? So there's a lot of things they've got to get comfortable with in space in the run game. There's also a lot of things they got to get comfortable with in the passing game. Like where's my help coming from? And so as we're looking to develop these kids, you mentioned it, the smarter they are, the better, because those kids are going to be able to understand where their help is. And that's the big thing we work with them on is you're coming from space in everything you do. Where is your help? Where do you not have help? So where can you not give up edges? So a lot of times where we're building out like drills for them or thinking of different things they might want to do, it's making sure they understand where their help is. It's kind of like a basketball player where you need to know where you're funneling everything to where there is help. You need to understand where you have zero help. And so this is what kind of your line in the sand, this can't happen. And so a lot of times with us, because we are a 3-4 team, they can't let receivers get inside of them because we're running a split coverage and the other guy's not looking. So, or it might be, okay, we're running a hard cover 2 right here. You really got to work to get over top of whatever route might be coming. Or we may be in quarters where now we need you to come on down and handle that out route. And so that guy's got to get comfortable in those type of situations. And so we do a lot of different things where we put him in uncomfortable situations in practice so that he's more comfortable during a game. So we look at identifying like the best athletes. I've already kind of mentioned that. And then we do a whole lot of things where we're looking at what are the rules for alignment? Like, how can I help myself by aligning X way? It might be they get in a bunch set. You are anticipating these are the things that are coming. So I want to be at 8 yards instead of 10 yards. Or this year, both our safeties had over 100 tackles. Like they were super aggressive. So we had to back them up to 10 yards because they kept getting lost and all the trash that was up there. And so we want to make sure we are helping ourselves out by alignment of what's going to happen. And so if you're trying to develop guys, a lot of times that's what you're looking for is where's your help coming from? What's your primary responsibility? And then I think one thing that coaches could do a better job of is giving them base rules. Like, what is our base rule regardless in our run fit? Well, our run fit is we're an inside out player. We're trying to force everything to the sideline. And so if they ever get some crazy formation and everything's going really, really fast, they know that's their run fit. And our coverage fit depends on kind of what coverage you run, but they need to know what is our base home. What are we reading? We're a pattern match team. So we're reading the number 2 receiver. That's our base. That's what we're going to live in. Here's how we're going to react to the different things he might do. And I think a lot of times if you can give that safety a couple simple rules, pound those into their head, and get them to line up right, they're going to have a chance to be successful. What unfortunately we do a lot of times with these poor kids is we got 19 coverages, 35 blitzes, and his rule is the one that changes on like all of those. He's got to be the one that changes on every single one of those. So you really limit. You better have a stinking Einstein back there if you're going to do that. So you better be able to figure out simple rules for this kid and make sure your defense can kind of stay simple for him because you're already asking him to do so many other things by alignment, coverage, run fit, blitzes. He's already got all that on his plate. How can you keep things simple for him where he doesn't have to do more than just that?
Yep. Probably could have mentioned this in skills earlier that we're looking for, but something I'm always trying to develop is just that critical thinking, that problem solving. Because little anecdotal thing here, I had a linebacker come off the field this year, and a ton of runs were getting through. They were just eating us up in the middle, and we couldn't see it from the sideline. And of course, we were a freshman team, so we didn't have all the fancy, ways to watch the game from the sideline like the varsity does. So he comes off and he's just saying, "Coach, every time the play snaps and I've got a lineman on me, like immediately I'm getting, in the trash. I'm getting blocked by a lineman." And when we go back and watch film, we realize that every play he was at, his toes are at like 3.5 yards. And it's like, that's such a simple thing to just back up to where you're supposed to be in depth. And now we don't have these issues, right? That guard's not getting to you. If you're at 5, you can scrape over the top. And so, but as a linebacker, yes, I want him to be able to problem solve as well. But, he's kind of down in there, so he can fill a gap and spill it, and I'm less upset with him. That safety position, I need him to be able to see that, like you just said, changing his alignment. That's something I need him to be able to do on the fly. The same team, my safety, we were playing a completely different game, and we had gone to more of a press man look toward the end of the season. We just felt like we could out athlete some teams there to close out the season. So, we do that, and I had a safety come off the field, and he got an interception, and he was like, "Coach, I know you guys want us press like even on the slot receivers, but I backed up to like 8 yards and just played the guy, and that's why I was able to get that interception." He's like, "I couldn't read it being that close," and I was like, "Well, that's excellent. That's what we need out of a safety is to go. This either isn't comfortable or isn't efficient. I need to do all the jobs you're telling me to do. I've got to be able to problem solve and align myself." Yes, we have base rules. He's not going to go line on the other side of the field where my numbers don't make sense. He's not going to line so far away that he can't fit his gap in the run fits. But he knew that he was at a disadvantage with the slot receiver in the way that we were asking him to play that. So, just the ability to take those little things, problem solve, make that adjustment. That's what I need in a safety. That's what I need in a leader is like, this isn't working. What can I do? And then I'll come off the field and communicate with my coach about this is what I changed and why I changed it, So that's kind of what, if you can start developing that, show them the scenarios, show them how something got someone beat, where the disadvantages are. I like the way you kind of teach your offense with the non-negotiables. You absolutely have to get this done, right? I think you talk to your offensive lineman about that a lot. Um, Same thing with safeties. If I can give them that non-negotiable, if it is pattern match, we're split field, nothing across your face, right? That's absolutely can't happen. Whatever it is, your non-negotiables, teach those and let them kind of operate in that little realm, whatever their realm of existence is. Let them kind of have some say so.
Right. I was going to say, let's do the giveaway here. This is kind of a good time of it. And
Absolutely.
I was thinking one question, but I think I'm going to change it up for you if it's okay, unless you already had it typed up.
No, man, go ahead, do your thing.
I was going to say, list your top 3 skills. If you're listening here, you want a free book. I think you got to go on to Twitter, comment on our post. You got to follow our account and then comment on our post. What are your top 3 skills for a safety? Just all you got to do is put 1, 2, 3. Here's what we're looking for when we're looking for a safety. If you're not on Twitter, okay, we'll try to put this in the Facebook groups. So if you're in a
Yep.
Facebook group and you caught it from there, you can comment on that. We'll look at all the accounts and then we'll pull a winner.
There you go. So if you're and once again on that, if you already have that coaching workbook, head coach workbook, coach will give you some options of what books you can pick from. So awesome. So there you go. There's the question of the day. What is your 3 skills are you looking for in a safety? All right, coach. Just moving this last question now. What are your favorite drills when it comes to coaching these safeties?
For me, I'm a big tackling guy. So they've got to be able to tackle to play in our offense. And so obviously, there's a lot of different tackling drills you can do. I'm a big fan of Atavus. So I'm not, they're not sponsoring us or anything. I'm just a fan of the way they teach tackling. We're a big inside out team. And so a lot of the tackling drills they teach, we do. You can use a tackle wheel to work on, coming with leverage and dropping our, center to make a good tackle with eyes up, chest up, all that kind of stuff.
Careful. You almost said dropping hips. People are gonna
Well, I mean,
disown us, man. They're gonna be like the hip drop tackle. We're trying to get that out of the
no,
NFL. So.
that's garbage right there. Get them on the ground. We're no one's trying to hurt anybody, but we got to go down the legs and make the tackle. So that's kind of how we got to do it. But I'm a huge fan of what we call 2-on-1 tackling with safeties. So that means we're going to put a safety with a corner. So the safety is working his inside leverage and the corner is working his outside leverage. That's a very defined, easy tackle because we know what our angle is and the corner knows what his angle is. And a lot of times we'll stack them up close together. So they got to work from space at weird looking things. So like we may bring the corner way in where he never would be, or he's got to sprint to get outside. The safety's got to fit inside and not overrun it. Then my second favorite one is 2-on-1 with the outside linebackers because that's not defined. We tell our safeties they have to fit off the outside backer. So we want him to fit outside and our safety to fit inside. However, football is not played in a vacuum. And so there are times when he doesn't do his job and the safety has got to make him right, kind of an overlap type tackle. So we're going to work those two type of 2-on-1 drills where we're going to put them in weird situations. Maybe it's a toss sweep. The outside backer is going to run to get the outside and the safety fits the inside. And the next one, we're going to throw the ball outside of the outside backer where now he's an inside fitter and our safety becomes the outside fitter. So he's got to work on these weird scenarios where how he's going to fit and know where to go. So there's a lot of tackling drills, but those are 2 of my favorite ones because they are very game oriented and they're working with another player. So they're having to think as well as work on breaking down and making tackles. I'm big on combos. I think that we run a lot of zone. So like for us, you got to work all the base combos you might get, outgo, crossers, wheel routes, wheel post, double post, dig post, which is a tough one for quarters and cover 2. So we're going to work all those combos. And then, of course, during the week, we're going to work the main combos we're going to see, especially what we call problem combos. So like if a team runs a quarters beater or cover 2 beater, which is like dig post is a very common one, get the safety to bite down and throw it over his head. How are we going to handle that? You got to coach your safety up because his job is to go kill the dig. But if you're doing that, you're opening up that post behind you. So we're going to be very game specific those weeks. But I'm just a big fan of working the different type of combinations we might get and then working them from different places. Like, all right, now you're on the wide side of the field. What are your rules on alignment? Now you're on the short side of the field. How do you align and then handle the same route? You know, a lot of teams, if you watch them play and break them down, they throw to the short side of the field because it's high school football. It's an easier throw. You know, they
Yep.
run to the wide side of the field. And so that's stuff that our kids need to be aware of and how we're going to attack that and how our alignment may change. If I'm playing a corner route to the field, it's a long way to run. If I'm playing a corner route to the boundary, you know, maybe I don't have to run as far, so I can be a little more aggressive. So different types of combo routes, things we're going to see. And then I'm a big fits from space guy. You know, we're a big team oriented group where we're going to work on how we're fitting our back edges. So we did 2-on-1 earlier. I talked about that one. Now we may go 3-on-1. We may go outside back or corner safety, bubble drill. Here it comes. How are we fitting that? Here comes sweep. How are we fitting that? Here comes whatever speed option. How are we fitting that? And so we're working all these things from space to a single to trips to twins. There's a lot of things that guy's got to get used to and just understand how it might change slightly, but it still should be his base rule. And that's, I want to kind of keep going back and harping on that. If you've taught him his base rule of where he's supposed to fit, and then like Daniel said, he can problem solve how to fit it that way, then he's going to be able to make quick adjustments for you. Because ultimately in the game, they're going to show you something you've not seen. So he's going to have to go back to his base rules to be right.
Yeah. We're talking about that, and this is where what you call your players determines what this episode means to you, even, right? Because I run Joe Daniels defenses, and so we have outside linebackers, but we call them safeties. And so when we started this episode, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm talking about three people in my scheme. We got a free safety, strong, and weak safety, right? I don't consider it a three safety system, like a three high safety look, but I call them safeties.
You're 4-2-5.
And so even when you're talking about, I want my safety to fit inside, and I was like, see, we fit different, but no, we don't. Like your outside linebacker is what I call a safety. So
Right.
yes, a force and an alley guy, right? We need to get those guys, and that's why that we can't tell you exactly how to develop every guy in your defense because I don't know what you're calling them all. But 100% now, once I thought about it, I was like, oh yeah, never mind. Outside linebackers are just what I'm calling my force safeties. So we're good. We do work a lot of run fit drills, and Joe has introduced the umbrella drill to anybody who's watched his systems. You know what that is, and I really like that as a drill because it's very game like. We're reading a key for our when are we going to go play the run versus we have a pass responsibility as well for those safeties that are sitting back. Sometimes that is your free safety and he has an outside backer in front of him. And sometimes it's your outside backer who's walked back to 8 yards and he's kind of playing coverage to his side, right? He's coverage first. So it just allows us to put our guys in the position they're going to be in the field or in a game and reading their key and then going and making that play. So I really like the umbrella drill. It's a run fit drill.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the time we're going to, be handing the ball off and watching them come make run fits. It teaches that, what we call cutback boot reverse or CBR player on the backside because you can't just run off, right? Because as soon as you do, man, it's one of those three. It's going to be a cutback, a boot, or a reverse coming to you, and you're covering a drag across the field because you didn't do your job, right? Um, and so it allows us to kind of teach all that and watch everybody see where everyone else fits. So a lot of things you talked about in the, knowing where your help is, that's a drill that really kind of drives that home. And you can start it early in the season. You can do it with one player. And by the end of the season, it essentially is a group drill that looks like team defense almost, like you can even throw your D lineman if you want to, like you can really make it expand and develop as much as you want, which is, I think, any good football drill should, right? You should be able to do it with one guy and you should be able to do it with 11 guys because if your drills aren't really replicating what the game looks like, then that's kind of strange anyway. So, yeah, so that's probably my favorite. Um, I will also mention my least favorite, and is just quit running the Oklahoma drill. It doesn't help your linebackers. It doesn't help your D line. It doesn't help your safeties. It's not realistic. I've seen some evolution of it that's okay when you got, more blockers and you can actually have to slow that guy down. But just letting the dude run 100% and spear your running back. We've always said every time we've talked about the Oklahoma drill, I've never ran it and not seen an injury. So it's 100% injury prone for me. That is the drill that causes them. So
I think the best one I've seen is where they did it's like a bubble type drill where blockers are coming at them from space. They got to avoid the blocker and make the tackle with their leverage. I think that's a good one. Not Oklahoma.
yes.
It's more like a toss, sweep, screen type
Yep.
drill.
I think we called it perimeter drill this year at Owasso, and yeah, you're absolutely right because a lot of people are running that stuff, man. A lot of people are trying to hit a bubble, and it might be bubble, it might be a fake, to that screen, and they're going to hit a vert, and then it might be a double pass. So you really have to teach that safety. If he's the stay in coverage guy that time,
Right.
he's got to do his job. And if he's
Well,
supposed to come fill a lane, he's got to do his job.
that's the
So
fits, man. You're asking a guy. I'm telling. A lot of times, offense are going to get 2-on-3, and that safety's got to be the extra fitter from 9 yards on their best kid. So that's a great
yeah,
drill.
yep, it's awesome. All right, man. That really takes care of all of our questions about how to develop a safety. So why don't you go ahead and give us our what not to do as a coach lesson for the week?
Sure. So basically, one of the things I think you don't want to do as a coach is give your kid a lot of different plays. So basically, the opposite of that would be what we've been talking about this whole episode. I think what you should do as a coach is give your kid a few simple fundamental concepts. We call those rules in anything, especially at safety. What is your base rule? Are you an inside or an outside fitter? How's your coverage rule? What are you reading? And then let the rest take care of itself. A lot of times, instead, we come up with this giant playbook on defense and we try to teach him all 90 plays and coverage we might have. And I'm not saying you're wrong to have a bunch of blitzes and coverages, but I'm saying how can you simplify it for him by giving him some base rules? Hey, if we ever run a roll coverage where you're the role player, here's your concept and your rules. And so now I can run roll coverage with that kid, and I've taught him one thing. It's really easy, and I can marry all these things off of it. But a lot of times we ask our safeties to know what every single person does on every single thing. It's a lot easier just to teach them, hey, if there's 2 receivers, here's what you're doing. If there's 3 receivers, here's what you're doing. If there's 1 receiver, here's where you should be looking. If there's a tight end, here's how you handle that. And now instead of having to teach them all these 9 million formations that offenses, and I'm one of those guys, like to run at him, and I can confuse them really easy. But if I've taught the kid 1 receiver, here's alignment, 2 receivers, here's alignment, 3 receivers, here's alignment, tight end, here's your rule, H-back, here's your rule. Now I've kind of given him concepts instead of giving him all of these different things. When I think a lot of times as coaches, we try to give them too much instead of just teach them simple rules that will apply to really anything we might see.
I think some coaches get caught up in the Madden game, right? Like you think that if you select the play off the screen, everybody on the field knows what's going on and runs it as accurately, I guess, as whatever difficulty level you have it set on. But it's just not true, right? These kids, they're processing a lot of stuff.
Right.
The crowd, the lights, the cheerleaders, the guys on the other side, the dude that's been pinching them and grabbing them and calling them names at the bottom of the pile every time. Like there's a ton of stuff that's just going on for those. So yeah, when you're constantly changing, I understand that some people are, you're going to run a 4-3 or a 3-4 and your force player might change from time to time, depending on what blitz you got called. That's acceptable. Hey man, if it's this family of calls and you should be grouping them up into family. I saw Ohio State calls it buckets. I think that's kind of a cool concept, but if it's in this family, you're force. If it's not in this family, you're staying coverage. But you've got to give them those defined rules. And like you said, coach, and just let them have a good understanding where every word they hear shouldn't change everything they're doing on Friday night. So that's excellent. All right, coach. Jumping into social media here, you can find me on on X or Twitter at Coach Chambo OK. You can also email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Where can we find you, Coach?
All things FB Coach Simpson. So if you don't win the book or you want to look at what books you can pick from, you can go to fbcoachsimpson.com. There's a bunch of stuff over there. Twitter is at FB Coach Simpson. And then fbcoachsimpson@gmail is my email address.
Awesome. The podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod on Twitter/X. I want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.